how the reserves are used is not a function of GIC. The GIC does not get involved in that. It is the Ministry of Finance and the government who decides how the reserves are used. As President, I will not interfere with how GIC is run. That is not a job of the President. But how the reserves are used, if the reserves are drawn on, that is the responsibility of the President. And that's nothing to do with GIC. But with my background and knowledge of how the reserves can grow and manage, I believe they'll help me to make a better decision with this background to see if the request by the government is justifiable or not, because it is a responsibility of the President in his custodial responsibilities to keep a stern guard on the reserves, to see that they are not used unless it is absolutely necessary. And I think that one has to judge on the circumstances of each situation as to whether it is necessary or not to draw on the reserves. And I think my background will give me a better understanding and being able to make a better decision in this regard.
May I ask a follow-up question to what Tony has said? What about, apart from the use of the reserve, what are your views about the investment of the reserves? For example, if you find that the reserves are invested in a risky manner, do you think as the President you would have a say about that?
The answer is no. It is not in the Constitution that the President has to get involved in how the reserves are managed. That is the responsibility of the government and the Minister of Finance. I think it will be a grave mistake for the President to get involved in the management of GIC or Temasek or our other sovereign wealth funds. That is ultra-violates the Constitution.
I'm not saying the day-to-day management. I'm saying to set the policy, whether it's risky or prudent. That's what I'm asking. Do you think you can have the reserves in the hands of a fund manager who, for whatever reason, the board, they take risky investments? What are your views on that?
The President can give his private views to the Prime Minister or to the Finance Minister on how the outlook for the economy is going, what are the risks involved. But we have to keep clearly in our mind at all times that in accordance with the Constitution, the responsibility and the power to manage the reserves rests with the government. The President has no authority to interfere in the management of our country's reserves. His responsibility, as defined by his custodial powers, is simply to guard the reserves and to judge as to whether any request to use part of reserves is justifiable. That is very clear in the Constitution.
I just want to make a statement of my views. If I'm the President responsible to guard the reserves and I do not have any say in how they are being invested, I would consider that to be a weakness in the system. And the Constitution should recognize that. So this is one of the things in the Constitution that we need to strengthen.
I still am not confident. I'm still not comfortable with Tony's answer to your question for independence, because I can see there's some degree of conflict of interest here. I've been in the corporate world for 20 years. We pick our independent directors by a set of rules that is drawn up by MAS, that is drawn up by SGX, and is adopted by the Singapore Institute of Directors. And it's very clearly stated that if you want to claim to be independent, you must leave that and if you have been an executive before and you want to come back to look after that company, in this case GIC, there should be a break of at least 3 years. This is a regulation applied to all of us. We in the corporate world, we know. Can you convince the Singaporeans that after having left 3 months from GIC, you go back to be involved in GIC in whatever manner. Is this independent enough? As a Singaporean, I want a clear answer.
Let me just respond very shortly to what Dr. Chan Boy said. The President does not look after GIC. The government looks after GIC. The President looks after the reserves, and whether any call on the reserves under his custodial responsibilities should be granted. That is the sole responsibility of the President under the Constitution. One must not step beyond the parameters of the Constitution.
But I still believe that there must be some degree of oversight onto the company like GIC.
Well, let me say that. I mean, we can go on like this for the whole afternoon. Dr. Tan Cheng Bock is entitled to his views, but it is not the job of the President to run or manage the GIC.
We need to move on.
I think we let Singaporeans decide.
Okay. You've said that you are somebody above politics, and in fact, I think you said it a moment ago. And you say you want to change mindsets and instill a sense of honesty and fairness and good values. I think these are very general statements that anyone can make. Why should anyone believe that you are capable of doing these things?
My main statement is to be the voice of the people. Would you want me to answer that? What have I done in being the voice of the people? Is that all right? Okay, now the general public knows that during the global financial crisis of 2008, I organized the investors who were badly affected to submit petitions to the government. This is a reflection about acting as the voice of the people. Now, I have been also quite active in my blog, the new social media, to interact with people, and quite a lot of my views don't come from me. It comes from people who interact with me. I also carry out surveys to see what are the general opinion of people. So they are not just my own personal views, but they are the views of the large numbers of people. And I think if you look at the Straits Times over the last 25 years, you have seen me write on many issues of concern to Singaporeans, national service, education, and others. So I have been quite active in voicing issues of concern to the people. Most of them are actually a summary of what people tell me. Okay, so I don't want to push my personal views. I want to make sure that they are widely supported. But to come back to your other question, if you like, about being independent, but being neutral. During my last 35 years, I've interacted with grassroots leaders, union leaders, cooperative leaders, policy holders, large numbers of people. They know me by the kind of person I am and by my values. The values I treasure very much are honesty, fairness, positive attitude, courage, and public service. They guide actually the views I express. I'm willing to express my views because I'm honest and positive. I also are fair, and I also want to promote the concept of public service. So those are my values which I bring into here. Now the people who know me, the people who express support from me, are not people who are PAP or opposition. They are ordinary Singaporeans who say, Mr. Tan, please stand for election. We want someone who is neutral. We want someone who is above politics. We want someone who can articulate our views, our concern. So this is my platform of neutrality.
Now, I wanted to go into some of the specific negative comments made about your candidacy, but we are running out of time. So I just want to pose a general question and ask if any of you want to respond to any of these criticisms that have been made. whether online or in print. And then we can move on to the second part of the roundtable discussion. And if you don't want to respond, that's also all right. Yes.
Okay, thank you for giving me the time.
Sorry?
Thank you for giving
1 minute each.
Yes,
Yes, I've
okay.
just been told by my timekeeper here.
All right.
Sorry, we got 1 minute to cover up.
No. To respond to any negative comments or allegations that have been made about yourself or your candidacy in this election.
Now, right at the start of the campaign, I make a statement that I will donate at least half of the president's salary to charity and other worthy causes. Somebody says it is like buying vote.
That's me.
That's right. Thank you for acknowledging. And of course, it's also covered in some of the media by the journalists who analyzed. I want to say that this is a demonstration of public service. I think our political leaders should not be paid so much. And I don't think the president needs to be paid so much. I want to set an example. It's not buying votes, but I want to demonstrate the people and the government and the leaders can be closer together. When the people knows that their leaders are working in the interest of the people and the country and not for themselves. So that is what I want to say.
Tan, you want to respond? Do you want to respond? It's
Or you want me
up
to
you.
have another?
You can do both if you want. Yes.
So kind of you. Okay.
In 1 minute.
First, I just want to make it very clear that there's a distinction between charity and pay cut. Charity must come from the heart. But when somebody told me that Kindian asked all of us to make a response to his statement that we should take half, we should cut our salary, my immediate response is that I'm compromising. I'm actually asking you cut your salary, I give you 1 vote. And I think this is a very basic fundamental principle that has been breached. This is vote buying. And if now before I become a president, and I compromise on this very fundamental principle, I think if I become a president, Singaporeans should worry I'm going to compromise even more. Okay, I hope I answered that.
Anybody else wants to?
I just want to give a short rebuttal. Never mind. I pass.
Yeah, I think we'll pass. Yeah, okay. Lee Hoon, do you want?
Well, let me just make a very general point with regard to adverse criticism. I think one must expect that in the course of a campaign there will be people who criticize your policies, and one must reply to that. And that's part of this whole process, and we understand that. But I think what I'm against are baseless personal attacks on any of the candidates. I think this has no place in a campaign or any campaign in Singapore. This has no place in Singapore. I hope my fellow candidates will agree with me that we should avoid all these unjustified, baseless personal attacks on any of us or any of our families. I think this is deplorable, and I think we should not condone this at all.